Evelyn found the logbook open on her desk and a new line typed across the top of the right hand page with tomorrow's date and her initials. Suspicion tightened her fingers around the lamp switch. She read the single sentence aloud because it felt impossible to keep to herself. Marsh satchel missing 900 patrol. The sentence named the thin leather satchel she had set under the desk that morning and the exact hour Ranger Dyers walked the ridge. The discovery was an active confrontation. The book had changed while the station was locked. That was the problem she had to fix before telling anyone. Evelyn Marsh moved first and moved with procedure. She slid on rectangular wire frame glasses, thumbed the metal badge on her keyring, and wrapped a hand around the satchel's strap to verify it was still there. The strap was present and warm from the heater. The satchel contained her pocket notebook, a pen on a cord, and the small flashlight she kept for night work. She did not fold the page closed. She did not set the book in the evidence locker without logging it. Her job required cataloging anomalies and isolating contamination. Institutional rules were a sequence of concrete steps she could point to if anyone asked. That training met her suspicion and directed it into documentation. She carried the logbook to the records alcove with measured steps. The playback console above the bench hummed. A sealed contamination directive sat in a clear plastic sleeve mounted by the console. Its header read conditioned hold. Isolate anomalous items until facility review. Evelyn unlocked the sleeve with the station badge and played the most recent supervisor memo. Supervisor Holt's voice came through thin and controlled. If an item alters after containment, notify Central immediately. Do not expose personnel. Evidence protocols remain in effect. Evelyn hit stop. The tape offered instructions, not consolation. The directive required isolation. Her suspicion pushed her toward isolation, but the book's naming of her satchel turned the matter personal and kept her from acting at once. She called Technician Mendes on the intercom to request on-site documentation. Mendes bring the portable copier and the white glove kit. Now, she said. The line answered with static, then Mendes's low voice. On my way. Evelyn, can't be this late, right? Evelyn kept her reply short. Bring the kit. Do not touch the spine without gloves. She placed the logbook on a clean pad and noted the fresh entry in the ledger she kept for anomalies. Her hands tapped her pocket notebook twice before she wrote anything down. The tapping replaced speech. Her body made the decision while her mind argued about whether to escalate to Central Command. Mendes arrived in 15 minutes with the portable copier slung over his shoulder and a tool case. He smelled of engine oil and brewed coffee. He set the copier on the workbench, put on nitrile gloves and asked, "You sure it's moved?" He kept his sentences short and practical. His voice was technician flat. He used the word moved in the mechanical sense. The entry is dated tomorrow. Evelyn, it names my satchel. It named Dyers earlier this morning. She handed him a gloved index card as evidence. Photograph it first. Then copy. Mendes nodded and took the book. His fingers brushed Evelyn's glove when he lifted the cover, and she noticed the way his jaw tightened. He ran a single page through the copier and fed the fresh printout back. The copy returned with a line of type redacted across the middle and a larger dark patch where the embossed Ranger emblem should have been. The new print showed the entry about Dyers erased and a different future line on the second copy. Mendes glanced at Evelyn. The redactions spread on the copy. He said, "This is overwriting before our eyes." Evelyn felt a shift from suspicion into disbelief, then into an urgent focus she kept as a set of actions. We do not circulate copies. We lock the originals and the copies go to Central under sealed transfer. She held the instruction like an anchor. Ranger Dyers arrived to check the trail referenced in the fresh entry. He was practical, short, spoken, and steady. He wore the faded cocky of fieldwork and carried a radio clip to his chest. He took the stapled index card with a look that tried to be light. "You sure this is not a prank, Evelyn?" he said, pronouncing her name in a way that asked for reassurance. "Evelyn, this place attracts stories. People like a thrill." Evelyn met his gaze and handed him the card. "This is a documented anomaly. Take the trail with a partner. Check the marker posts and return on schedule. Do not leave the main path." Dyers folded his hands around the card and said, "All right, I'll check it. But you should log this with Holt." "I did," Evelyn answered. "He's on record. But we isolate first. You leave before dawn." That exchange moved them into practical division. Dyers left to inspect the trail. Evelyn stayed to document. Dyers stepped onto the gravel road at 6:58 am and spoke into his radio. "Base, I'm heading the Pine Ridge Trail. I'll call at Point Bravo." He clipped the radio and walked into trees that held a low fog. Evelyn watched him go through the window because she needed to see the physical departure, a confirmation of action that felt more solid than the typed words. She recorded his time on the incident sheet with a precise pen stroke. The book sat on the bench, its cover cracked dark brown leather showing the faint embossed mark. She left the office for the surveillance room to review the corridor camera after Dyers's call. In the surveillance monitor, Dyers's silhouette walked past the gate at 6:59 am. He passed the first checkpoint, and then the feed blurred at 7:02 am. Evelyn rewound. The footage showed a quick shimmer across the frame, a slatted distortion. Then Dyers was simply gone, the trail empty and the radio dead. Her suspicion turned to cold fear. Doubt shifted into urgent alarm. She called Dyers on his radio, no response. She called Mendes at the bench, "Find the last copy. Check the locker. Check the footage." Now, Mendes's voice from the alcove was tight. "I'm on it. The last copies." He stopped because he had a new printout in his hand. The printout showed Dyers's name blurred and replaced by a date 2 days from now. Evelyn felt the second emotion shift. Alarm became a grinding, methodical stubbornness to follow procedure even as her hands shook. Evelyn and Mendes argued in quick bursts about whether to notify Central Command immediately. "If we call Central, they quarantine the station and evacuate us." Mendes, "If we don't, Dyers is out there. We have to act." Evelyn looked at the evidence locker, at the sealed contamination directive, and at the book, "Halt, isolate and notify. We isolate first and then call Central. We maintain chain of custody. We do this by the book." Mendes countered. "Dyers might be missing right now. You'd let protocol keep him gone." The back and forth was short and sharp. 3 lines from Mendes, 3 from Evelyn, then a softer line from Mendes. "All right, we isolate. But after that, I call the search team." The argument showcased 2 voices, Evelyn's institutional restraint and Mendes's practical urgency. Both voices pushed the plot forward and forced decisions outside Evelyn's internal debate. They moved the logbook into the evidence locker together. Evelyn sealed the metal latch with the station evidence tag, wrote her initials, and recorded the time at 9:05. She left the locker door ajar while she went to run another tape of the corridor camera. When she returned, the locker sat closed and the tag had an additional stapled index card tucked beneath it. The card bore her name in type. Archivist Evelyn Marsh, entry 04213. The card's edges were clean. Her finger traced the printed letters and felt a shallow groove in the paper. The sight of her name on an official index card moved her from procedural focus into a new, private panic. She had documented everything. The book had documented her. She forced herself to speak out loud because silence sharpened everything. "Mendes, this card wasn't there when I sealed it," she said. "Check the locker log. Check the stamps." Mendes checked and confirmed the time stamp matched the sealing time. "It slipped in after we closed it," he said. He tapped his pen against his forehead. "This thing is interactive and it adapts to containment. It writes into the chain." Evelyn's breath shortened. Her actions became direct. She read the card and then read the book's last visible page aloud. Entry 0142. E. Marsh reads aloud. "Spine resists. Sealed evidence locker 19 Odrid." The specificity of the printed sequence removed any comfort of metaphor. The book's next step had her name and an action. That statement forced her to decide whether to read the entry aloud to verify. She opened the locker again and lifted the logbook with gloved hands. Her fingers trembled, but she kept the gloves steady. She felt the weight at the spine like a slow pulse. The book's pages shifted when she raised it. A faint creak sounded like a distant typewriter. Evelyn herself, she would not read her name. She lifted the page and read the line that stood because she needed to know exactly what the book intended. It read a phrased future in present tense, naming a time and a method she knew she could enact. Her mouth went dry. She put the page down and felt the book tighten against the pad as if it were a muscle contracting. Evelyn tried to destroy the book. She placed it under a heat lamp in the back room and let the lamp run for 20 minutes. The leather warmed. The ink darkened. Then a thin charred smell rose and the lamp sputtered. The heat failed to take hold. The spine hardened. She struck the cover with a heavy mallet, and the mollet bounced with a dull, wooden thud. The book did not split. She carried it outside and tried to set a match to one corner. The match went out in a gust of air she could not feel, and the corner remained. Each attempt produced a specific physical failure. The lamp blew, the mollet recoiled, the match extinguished. Her emotions shifted again from panic into a cold, focused problem-solving drive. She had to find a different route. While she worked, Supervisor Holt called remotely through the playback console. Holt's voice over the line was controlled and clipped. Evelyn, status report. We are authorizing a limited search party for Ranger Dyers. Follow protocol if the object resists handling. Evelyn read the call as a procedural containment placed on top of an unfolding emergency. She answered, Holt Dyers is missing. The logbook printed a future entry naming him. We sealed the book, but a new card addressed me appeared in the locker. Holt's response contained the institutional stance. Do not expose additional personnel. Secure the site, await Central. Do not read additional pages. The recorded order echoed the same instruction she already followed, but the voice added one line Holt did not record in writing. Keep the evidence secure, Evelyn, and keep yourself distanced. The phrase felt like both command and warning. At noon, the book reacted. Evelyn had intended to photograph one last page before Central arrived. She read the line aloud to confirm the wording, and the pages moved like a set of trapped leaves sliding against one another. The book pinched the page at the corner and ink bled into a new sentence naming a date and a precise action Evelyn would take an hour later. The binding throbbed. She slammed the cover closed with two hands and the sound carried through the station as an impact. The book's pages rested but left a smear of fresh black on her gloves. Her pulse beat in her throat. She felt a tension tight in her shoulders. She realized that reading a line aloud changed the rate of revision. The book did not merely record, it advanced the sequence. Evelyn called Dyers' radio again and got static. She paced the corridor with the evidence locker key in her hand, and then realized she had to do something beyond procedure, because Dyers remained unaccounted for and Central had not yet arrived. She turned to Mendes and said, You call the search team. Now, use my name with Holt if you must. Tell them Dyers went missing after he left for Pine Ridge. Mendes began the call while Evelyn checked the office for anything else the book might have rearranged. She opened the stapled index cards and found one moved to the back of the book. Another had slipped under the mat. Each shift felt surgical and targeted, not random. An hour passed with station phones rutting to dead lines and Holt's remote contacts slow to reply. Mendes came back from the radio with a new printout in hand. He laid it on the bench and pointed. This is different, he said, look. The print showed a future entry headed with Evelyn's initials and a sentence describing an attempt to burn the book. The print named the time and described the failure. Evelyn read it and then felt the book under the pad like a small animal pressing to be let out. She considered leaving a note with Central admitting she had provoked the object. But her training told her to preserve evidence and not to add speculation to a chain of custody. The station's external line chimed with a recorded message from Central. They were en route but delayed due to weather and resource allocation. Holt's voice came again. Do not take unilateral destructive action. We will advise when secure transport arrives. The instruction kept Evelyn inside containment, even as she felt pressure from Mendes and the absence of Dyers to act differently. She felt the tension split, trust procedure, or follow the quick route to a field search that might salvage Dyers. She looked at Mendes. If we wait, Dyers could be gone permanently. Evelyn, you said you'd protect the archive. Do you see him as evidence now? The question landed like a concrete object. Evelyn answered with steps. We call the tracker unit. I stay with the book. Mendes, you go with the team once they assemble. Bring radios and leave no one alone. The command settled the dispute with action. Evening tightened around the station and the storm that the forecast predicted arrived with a low, steady rain. Evelyn sealed the logbook into the locker again but kept the locker unlocked with the key in her pocket. She recorded the evidence tag and double-checked the seals. The metal corridor hummed and the rain made the windows boil with streaks. She sat at her desk, hands folded, waiting. At 1900 hours, a new stapled index card slipped beneath the locker door as if fed by an invisible hand. She picked it up and read the type. It listed a numbered entry and time, and then, on the last line, a single directive. "Do not read your own entry." She looked at the locker. She looked at her hands. Her breathing had become a measured rhythm of short inhales and longer exhales. She rubbed the freckle cluster on her right cheek without thinking. The instruction was both a warning and an instrument. Evelyn folded the card and slipped it into her pocket. She made the choice required by her job and her motive, to catalogue the anomaly without exposing others. She logged the card in the ledger, stamped it with the evidence number, and slid the locker shut. The final concrete beat of the night was the sound of metal closing and the evidence tag clicking into place. That mechanical click held the chapter's small resolution. Containment in place, a personal threat confirmed, and a new addressed card waiting inside the locked space that carried her name and a future entry number. The day ended with the locker sealed and an unresolved mandate left in her pocket, a physical item demanding she keep secrecy and follow protocol. The monitor caught it in a single unblinking frame. A fresh line of type appearing on the open right-hand page while Evelyn leaned close and said, "Stop." Suspicion tightened her voice into something small and precise. She said the word because she needed a witness, not a comfort. The camera hummed above the desk, its green led a steady eye. The text formed one letter at a time and then wrote her initials. She did not step back. She kept her fingertips on the lamp base and let the light bracket her hands. In the next 3 sentences her brain catalogued procedure. Record, secure, notify. Instead she whispered, "Pause the feed." Her fingers trembled when she pushed the monitor's pause. The frozen letters stayed where they'd appeared, black and crisp, but Evelyn knew the book had not stopped working. The immediate, visible problem, an object creating future lines while under observation, was now the center of every choice she would make that night. Evelyn Marsh had catalogued incident reports for a decade. She knew how to translate oddities into boxes and signatures. She had boxed rusted radios, labeled evidence bags, and written neat, bureaucratic summaries that made violent things legible. That training made her lean forward now and check metadata on the recording rig before she spoke aloud. Timestamp 9:20, 1 p.m. Feed 3, camera 2. Samantha, pull the raw, the station clock read 20:129. Her suspicion shifted into method. Test, verify, and only then escalate. Samantha Ruiz moved across the surveillance room with the quick economy of someone who had wired 100 cameras in the field. Raws salvaged. Samantha, slipping a ASP into the console. You want me to run frame comparison? Evelyn, yes. Everything. Samantha nodded and did not look at the page. She kept her hands busy with the terminal, which made her face seem smaller in the screen glow. The 2 women had worked together long enough that a single glance could pass as a sentence. Ranger Cole arrived 5 minutes later with keys clinking on his belt, and the kind of institutional flatness that often doubled for disbelief. "You called me in for this." Cole stepping into the room and pointing the beam of his flashlight toward the desk where the log rested. He did not ask cynically. He asked like a man repeating procedure. Evelyn answered him with the paused monitor and the print on the page. Her tone was low. "It types. It types live while we watch." Her voice contained an undercurrent that would become clearer. She felt responsible for naming the thing before anyone else could. Cole crouched and read the line on the page aloud. "E. Marsh, satchel missing, Zone 9 Odrid Patrol." He the time and the shortened the book used and then frowned. "Samantha, that's the same format as those old field reports, but dated in the future." "Cole, we can't have a book that writes futures in our evidence room." Evelyn, we already have one." We watched it. The conversation shifted between administrative disbelief and precise alarm. The station's hierarchy fought within minutes over what categories this belonged to. Contamination, artifact, threat. They were clashing over containment when the monitor resumed on Samantha's command and a new word appeared, slower, deliberate. Samantha's jaw tightened. She said, "Stop the feed, stop the feed." Cole grabbed the pause switch and the image froze again. Evelyn, rewind 2 minutes. When the footage replayed, the line had not always been there. The page had been blank and then letters crystallized in plain monospace. Evelyn's suspicion morphed into a brittle curiosity. She wanted to know the mechanics, not only the danger. Samantha proposed an experiment. "We rig a camera and a photocopier, double-check archival duplications overnight. If it's physical, we can document it, Cole. No copying until we consult protocol, Evelyn. We document first. We don't duplicate until we have containment. The argument tightened. Evelyn's insistence was driven both by procedure and by something else, the feeling that observation itself might be the lever the book used. That possibility forced them to balance documentation against provocation. They set up the rig in the archive room. A fixed camera above the log, a secondary camera at 45 degrees, the copier under a dust cover, and Samantha's laptop running checksum scripts. Samantha taped the lenses, threaded cable runs, and muttered about power cycling. If it senses attempts to reproduce, we get corrupt images, she said. Cole checked his watch. We leave 2 people on at all times. No one reads the pages alone. Evelyn read the instruction back, and then placed her palm on the leather cover without opening it. The first external event after the setup was tangible. A stapled index card fell free and slid across the desk to rest against the edge of the copier. It had always been inside the book, now it moved on its own path. Samantha lunged and picked it up. It points to the map envelope, she said, holding the card toward the torn paper folded inside the book. The card's ink had a fresh edge to it. Cole, seal the book in evidence. Now Evelyn did not move fast enough to stop him. Cole carried the log down the corridor with gloves and evidence tape and locked it in the evidence locker. He turned the key, clicked the pad, and walked back to the group with the procedural calm of someone who believed containment exists. Evelyn watched a card slip in under his arm and then reattach to the book like a paper hand. Samantha cried. It reattached to the map. It pointed at the trail. The index cards rearranging themselves became a concrete, movable instruction. The book did not simply record. It directed. Cole hitched his shoulders and said, "We follow procedure. We file a notice, redact where necessary, and we restrict access." Samantha, what if containment increases activity? Cole, then we call agency control. Evelyn, we can't trust that a sealed box will stop the pages from naming someone inside this building. The argument escalated into a rapid exchange. 3 terse lines from Samantha, 2 from Cole, then Evelyn cutting in with a single, decisive line. Their back and forth matched the rule. Decisions would not rest on one person. Field Ranger Briggs returned then, cutting through the fog of words with a lamp swing and a tired grin. "You lot look like you've seen something pretty, Briggs." Wiping his boots. He took the box from Cole's hands without ceremony and set it on the desk. He did not honor the evidence tape. He unlatched the cover as if checking gear. Samantha grabbed his wrist. "Don't open it, Briggs." Briggs shrugged her off and read the visible line. The log added a new sentence under their eyes. "Evelyn Marsh, patrols 0430 unaccounted." Briggs laughed once. "Rough, that's paperwork for you." His laugh flattened when he noticed Evelyn's face. When Briggs left to do an early patrol, Evelyn followed him to the station door with a map clenched in her hands and a taped page folded into her pocket. Her steps were quick. "Briggs, wait." He turned. "You don't have to go alone, Briggs. I've done the run 100 times. I need the sleep pattern checked. Evelyn, take Samantha with you." "Take 2 radios," Briggs agreed and left, and the book's handwriting shifted again, faint as a reproof. Samantha put on a jacket and grabbed a patrol light. Cole watched them go and then sat, hunched over the monitor with his hands folded into each other. They followed the trail of fresh pages into the forest under low cloud and a light that made everything hard-edged. Evelyn kept the map and the photocopied card between her fingers like an instruction. A breeze pushed at the trees and sounded through the trunks as if papers rubbed together. "Samantha, we stay in sight." Briggs, circle left. "Evelyn, right." "Evelyn, I'll sweep along the stream. I'll call every 5 minutes." They moved carefully, boots making measured rhythms and flashlights carving narrow cones. The book's pages had drifted out from the station like breadcrumbs. The confrontation came when Evelyn found a smear of fabric snagged on a branch and a single, clean bootprint pressed into the mud, too small for Briggs's size. She crouched and ran her gloved finger along the edge of the print. Wet clay stuck to her glove. "Samantha, there's a drag mark here." "Evelyn, someone's been moved." The forest gave no sound beyond the breath of leaves. Then Evelyn noticed a fresh page pinned to the underbrush with a cedar twig. The type read a line half formed. Her stomach hardened. She read the first half sentence aloud and did not finish it. Evelyn's curiosity broke into alarm when she realized the sentence described a location ahead and an exact minute. Her hands went cold. She wanted to keep reading, to know whether the next word would be rescue or disappearance. Samantha grabbed the page from her fingers and stammered, "We don't, Evelyn, we need to know if Briggs." A snap sounded in the brush behind them. They both turned. A figure in a ranger jacket stood at the edge of the cone of light, holding a battered flashlight that cut a thin white line. "Briggs." Samantha called, "Briggs, where are you?" The figure stepped forward and it was Briggs, but his face had a smear of dirt and a blank, slow stare. I checked the trail. All clear, Evelyn. Where did you go?" Briggs looked at the pinned page, then at Evelyn's hands, and then said, "The book said to keep moving." His voice had a mechanical cadence that made Samantha take a step back. Evelyn felt something shift inside her from professional caution into protective panic. She stepped between Briggs and the pinned page and tore it free. The page read a line she had not seen before. Evelyn Marsh pursued beyond trailhead. Reed's remaining line, the book had named her action. Samantha's face went white. "It knows which hand reads," Samantha whispered. "It ties action to reader." Cole's earlier command to seal the book rang in Evelyn's head. Now a detail that felt foolish against the book's reach. The forest had become a testing ground and the log an experimenter setting rules. Evelyn made a choice. She folded the pinned page into her notebook and marked the line with a pencil. We go back." Now Briggs resisted. "We cannot leave a potential scene unlogged," he said. "Evelyn, Samantha, help me document the drag." Briggs, radio base and tell them we were returning." Briggs's posture shifted. He obeyed. The decision fractured the group's plan but kept them together. Their movement back to the station was quiet and immediate. When they returned, the evidence locker door was ajar. Cole stood before it with a red crease on his palm and the book on the desk, open to a page that had not been there when he'd first locked it. Without looking up, it moved. Samantha snapped. "Prove it." Evelyn set the pinned page on the desk and watched the typed letters darken. The log's embossed emblem shimmered under the desk lamp like an eye that had turned reflective. "Cole, we quarantined the entire wing." His voice was thin with a responsibility he had to the agency and its procedures. "They tried to copy the pages that night." Samantha ran the paper through the photocopier 3 times, while Evelyn watched the readout for anomalies. Each copy emerged with spreading black bars where the book's new redactions had appeared. When they compared the images, the copies had dates and times that shifted forward an extra hour, as if the act of copying nudged the schedule. Samantha, "It corrupts reproductions." Cole, "Then we stop reproducing." Evelyn, "Do we burn it?" Cole, "No. Evidence rules." The contradiction revealed how trapped procedure left them when the object ignored their categories. Samantha stayed until the edge of dawn and then slipped a loose page into her jacket pocket when no one watched. She did not tell Evelyn immediately. Later, in the small meeting room, she said, "I kept one." Evelyn stared at her. "Why?" Samantha, "Because you needed someone who wasn't on duty to see it. Someone willing to do the math with fewer constraints." Evelyn's expression tightened. "Samantha, that's dangerous." Samantha, "So is letting Cole decide secrecy for everyone." The debate moved from tactical to moral in 2 sentences. Cole filed redactions the next morning and started a report that read like an attempt to make the night forgettable. Neat lines, official stamps, and a decision to omit certain pages. "We do not circulate this beyond station command." Evelyn, "You can't just bury evidence." Cole, "We keep the public safe." Evelyn, "We do not trade people for security." The argument became a friction of responsibilities. Cole's duty to institutional stability and Evelyn's duty to truth and protection. The log settled back on the desk like an object pretending not to be awake. Evelyn moved her hand over the spine and felt a charred edge that had not been there before. She remembered the first chapter's single sentence, her initials and a time, and how that small proof had changed her night's sleep. She had told no one about reading the early entry aloud. She had not wanted to share that she had spoken the line into existence. This memory pulsed and altered her choices. She now refused to read any page aloud without tape, without witness, without process. An unexpected reveal came when Samantha, in the middle of a protocol argument, announced that the embossed Ranger emblem on the cover matched a retired field code tied to a defunct protective detail decades earlier. Someone stamped it with that seal. Old maintenance logs show that stamp on sealed removals from the restricted zone, Samantha. Cole frowned. That would mean it's agency property from another era. It would explain the paper stock, Evelyn. It would not explain the typing that names us. The twist reframed the book as something older and institutional, linked to a quiet program rather than a natural object. Samantha's choice to keep a page changed the station's calculus. She sat with Evelyn in the archive and spread the stolen page on the table. The text on Samantha's page matched the night's entries, but contained an extra line that named a different ranger with a date 10 days ahead. This isn't about us alone, Samantha. It writes futures attached to readers, but it also references others outside our station. Evelyn read the line and felt the shift from immediate personal danger to a broader pattern. The log could seed incidents across a network if attention reached beyond them. Evelyn demanded a decision. Cole wanted the agency notified quietly. Samantha wanted the copies distributed to an external archivist she trusted. Briggs wanted to patrol and verify the trail. Evelyn, we cannot leave the log alone, and we cannot let it choose readers by proximity. We lock it under 2 keys and monitor remotely with no human reader present. Cole, remote surveillance will provoke it less. Samantha, remote still counts as attention. It will react. The debate broke into a flurry of short lines. Evelyn recorded the arguments and then made the choice that aligned with her original motivation. Protect records, limit harm. They enacted a lockdown that morning. Cole sealed the log in a double-layered containment box and attached a recorded feeding schedule to the evidence chain. Samantha set a camera to record only still exposures and encrypted the files. Evelyn wrote a note and slid it under the lid before sealing it. Do not read aloud. No single reader. She signed it and wrapped the padlock. The act was concrete and administrative, and it felt like the only thing she could do to assert order over an object that rewrote events. At noon, Samantha slipped out and left a copy of the stolen page at a remote mailbox under an alias. She did this because she believed distribution might reveal pattern outside the station's walls. Evelyn discovered the missing page when she went to check the archive and found Samantha's empty chair and the desk drawer askew. She called Cole. Samantha left. Evelyn, she took something and left a copy out there. Cole stood and ran his fingers through his hair. We track her down. We get the page back, he said. He moved fast and his action altered the story's direction. The chapter closed with a specific, concrete beat. At 2:40 in the afternoon a radio ping came from the field. Briggs's voice said, I pulled the trail. Found nothing but a stack of pages leading deeper. One page had Samantha's handwriting on it. There was silence on the line. Evelyn gripped the handset and replied, report location. Briggs gave coordinates and then, under his breath, said, she left it for someone else to find. The last paragraph of the night tied itself to an administrative choice. Cole filed an immediate directive to limit external contact and scheduled a formal chain of custody review. That action resolved the chapter's immediate conflict, containment versus pursuit, while leaving the broader threat active and organized for the next step. Emotion route. Suspicion drove Evelyn to test and to insist on procedure. First shift suspicion into precise curiosity sent her to the monitors. Second shift curiosity into fear made her choose containment over reckless pursuit. She acted through recorded steps, short orders, and small physical resistances. Her hand on the spine, her palm marking a page, a sealed padlock. The chapter ends with the log locked and a recorded directive, and with Samantha gone into unknown terrain carrying a page that might spread the pattern elsewhere. Dawn found the station enforcing secrecy, and Evelyn watched the book at the center of a file that would not be quiet for long. The chapter resolves the immediate crisis. The team tested and contained, and an institutional decision was made to bury or control distribution. It ends with concrete images, sealed locker, a page folded into a pocket, Carlson's radio coordinates, and an audible, administrative finality as Cole signs off the log. The final line is not reflective sentiment but a procedural closure. Cole's hand slid the custody form into the archive box and turned the key twice. Evelyn slammed her palm onto the desk when she read the new line. Ranger Halvorsen, Zo 545 North Ridge. The typeface sat on the right-hand page, the letters still warm where the ink had settled. A clock on the wall showed 5:37. Suspicion tightened her fingers around the lamp switch, and pushed her toward the radio before she could think of procedure. She turned the radio knob and called, "Halvorsen, this is Station 3. Report." Halvorsen's voice came thin and clipped, then a scrape of static, then nothing the set could hold. Suspicion is the engine of her movements that morning. She had found the logbook opened and altered before. She had read the line from Chapter 1 with her own initials, E. Marsh, satchel missing, Zone 900 patrol, and watched the monitor catch the letters forming. Her first reaction had been methodical. Document, preserve, call a witness. That method pulled now against a new, sharper problem. The problem was concrete. The book wrote futures. The book named people. The book was naming someone on duty now. Evelyn reached for the desk lamp with one hand and the station radio with the other. She spoke into the microphone with the flat phrasing the archive required when reporting anomalies. Chief Alder, Halvorsen, called in. He cut out at the ridge. The log shows his name for 5:45. There was static on his end, then Alder's shoes on the linoleum as he moved toward the door. He, copy. Keep a record. Do not touch the pages. His voice had the clipped authority of a protocol officer who had read too many containment forms. Evelyn answered with the single sentence protocol she had used before, logged. Camera feed retained. She laid a gloved finger just above the line naming Halvorsen and watched the letters settle. Her jaw tightened. Doubt moved behind suspicion. Doubt pressed at the edges of what she thought she knew about the log. She felt the heat of that doubt in the skin of her fingertips. She pulled the camera monitor closer with 2 fingers and checked the timestamp against the desk clock. Jonas was already at the makeshift scanning table in the archive alcove, unpacking a hand scanner and a cable bundle. How fresh, Jonas. He had a file bag of devices and a habit of speaking while his hands sorted tools. Jonas's voice was quick, technical. If we capture this now, we get a record. Evelyn did not answer immediately. Don't scan it. Last time the redaction grew on the device, Jonas paused and glanced at the log with the expression of someone who preferred problems to be solvable. We fix problems. We don't hide them. Give me 5 minutes. His fingers tapped on a tablet. Evelyn hesitated, then created an explicit record. She read the line aloud and recorded it into a locked folder. Ranger Halvorsen, Zo 5445 North Ridge, she said. And the camera above the desk whirred in a businesslike way. The line did not change while she spoke. When she stopped, the letters on the page shifted by a millimeter and a darker bar of redaction slid in over Halvorsen's reported last words. Her throat closed. She swallowed a sound and moved her hand away. Alder arrived at the doorway with his field jacket half unzipped and his badge clipped to the inside. He barked, "Where is it? Where is the book?" Chief Alder's presence always tightened the room. His shoes squeaked on the floor. Evelyn answered with the exact phrasing the station used for protocol disputes. "On my desk," she said. "New entry for Halvorsen." He cut to static on the radio. Alder's eyes flicked to the camera monitor, then to the page. Seal the room. No one leaves. No one copies." His voice had the bluntness of someone used to enforcing orders, not debating them. Jonas pushed a scanner forward despite Alder. "We can't just let it rewrite itself unchallenged," he said. Jonas's words were short and heated. Alder clipped him with a look. "Jonas, step back. Do you want to contaminate evidence?" Jonas answered, "I want proof. If we surrender proof, we can warn people outside of protocol." The exchange lasted 3 quick lines and then sputtered into argument. Alder insisted containment. Jonas insisted documentation. Evelyn listened and counted the cost as the clock moved. Evelyn made a decision that felt like the only one she could trust. She dialed Halvorsen's field frequency and keyed a short burst. "Halvorsen, do not move from the ridge. Stay where you are and answer this frequency once more." The set clicked. Static fed the room like cold air. For a breath, she heard his voice again. "There's something on the trail. Can't." The audio garbled and a black redaction bar crawled across the right hand margin where his reply would be typed. Evelyn's hand closed into a fist. Doubt shifted into alarm. Alarm moved her body faster than the voice in her head. She stood and pushed the logbook away from the lamp to better protect the page from the light. Jonas, step away from the scanner. He hesitated, then relented. Alder's jaw worked. He said, "We follow containment. We lock the book in an evidence crate with redacted seal. Evelyn, if we lock it away, someone else will open it later, and..." She stopped because she could not finish the sentence without supplying the very future she was trying to avoid. Jonas reached out and set a portable camera above the desk to capture the page from an angle. If the log changes when we watch, we'll have it on tape. Alder opened his mouth toward him not to. Evelyn cut him off. No new devices. Only existing monitors. Her voice had the institutional restraint she usually relied on. She thought of the monitor from Chapter 2 that had caught the type as it formed. The earlier recording had shown the fresh line appearing while she leaned over and said, "Stop." That footage had been decisive. It had been the proof they dragged into the protocol binder. She chose the camera that had already been recording because those images had not provoked further redaction when used before. The radio spat a burst of sound and then a voice that was not Halvorson's. Someone spoke in a thin, mechanical whisper and said, "Do not catalog. Do not copy." The words arrived over the open set as if recorded and played. For a second, Alder reached for the log, then froze. The log's right-hand page darkened in a small, precise patch of smudged ink where the words on the radio had been. Alder, who put a feed on the open channel. Jonas answered fast, "No one. It's coming from the ridge." Evelyn dialed the ridge again. The signal answered with a static rasp. A new line appeared below Halvorson's name. Redacted, audio removed. The entry read like an instruction. "Jonas, the book is censoring audio now." Alder barked, "Cover the monitors. Unplug anything recorded externally." He moved to cut power. Evelyn held his arm. "Wait," she said. "If we lose footage now, we won't know what changed." Alder's hand left his jacket and tightened into a fist around a protocol card. The card says containment first." He looked at Evelyn and said, "Marsh, catalog the page and close it." Evelyn looked at the typed letters that had appeared while she watched and realized she had a smaller choice than she imagined. She opened the drawer and pulled a paper shredder unit used for sensitive internal notes. Her movement made Jonas lean forward. "What are you doing?" "Jonas." He had a technical suspicion that burning or shredding could themselves trigger the log. Evelyn put her fingertip to the log's edge and felt the faint charred odor at the spine. She had smelled the same thing in the book's binding since she first opened it. If nothing destroys the page, the book will name more people. If we destroy it, what happens to the names already written? Jonas answered, "We can't know. But I won't be on a list tomorrow if I try to stop it." His voice tightened. Evelyn fed the shredder a testing scrap of paper she kept for calibration. The motor whined. She did not yet touch the log. Alder moved in front of the desk and positioned himself between the book and the machine. "No destruction. This is evidence for the agency. We don't burn evidence," he in a voice not asking for cooperation, but demanding compliance. Evelyn measured the swipe of his sleeve and chose a different path. She reached into her satchel and produced a small folded blister of film, an old manual method that had no live electronics. "We photograph with film," she said. "Jonas, load the rangefinder. Alder, keep watch on the door." The three of them arranged themselves around the desk like people who had rehearsed a drill. Jonas crouched and fit the film camera into place. He whispered, "If the redaction spreads on devices, maybe analog won't trigger it." He spoke like someone offering a theory as an experiment. Alder's eyes did not leave the book. Evelyn slid the film frame under the lamp and cocked it into place. On 3, the camera clacked and the shutter bit into the film. The log's ink blurred at a corner, and a new sliver of type crept onto the page. "Jonas, West Stair, Low 5 through 52. Jonas drew in air as if hurt. "What did I do?" Evelyn held the film canister before she could think of return. Her hands shook. The thought of Jonas's name on the page buckled something in her. Alarm became a different motion. She pushed the film canister into the inner pocket of her jacket. "We don't publish this," she said. "We secure what we have and we follow protocol." Alder barked. "Marshal the crate." "Jonas, you will catalog the devices." Jonas stared at the spot on the page where his name now sat and then at Evelyn. "Evelyn," he said, "you put that in your pocket." "I put the canister in my pocket to keep it from being scanned." He looked angry, betrayed, relieved. "You kept it from the records," he said. "I kept it from becoming a map." He swore softly and then put both hands on the desk. The log printed one final line on the page beneath Jonas's name. The letters were small and surgical. "Evelyn Marsh, Central Desk, 0559. The desk clock read 5:58. The doors to the station clicked. The mechanical locks engaged in a way that made Alder's shoulders tense. The security panel flashed locked. For the first time since she had taken the post as archivist, Evelyn felt the physical pressure of a decision, the impulse to destroy, to run, to read her own fate. That line was the climax. The light over the desk hummed. Pages around it exhaled a papery creak. Alder moved toward the log with his hand out. "Don't read it," he said. His voice had a raw edge that did not belong to protocol. "Evelyn, if I don't read my entry, I don't know what to stop," Alder answered. "If you read it, you risk becoming exactly what the page names." The room narrowed into the circle of the lamp and the three faces around it. Evelyn opened the page with two hands. Her fingers trembled in ways her training had not taught. She read the line aloud because reading had always been how she catalogued danger. She spoke, "Evelyn Marsh, Central Desk, Zo 59, follow instructions redacted." The redaction held where a clause should have been. Her breathing shortened. She felt the muscles in her jaw tighten. A choice hardened inside of her like a found tool. "Jonas, we can take the book to the containment van. We can lock it in an impenetrable case." Alder, "No. The case is for transport with a full seal. It will be handled by the agency team. We wait for them, and we do not open the book again." Jonas countered in a quick string of technical terms and objections. "If we wait, the book writes while we wait. If we move it, we risk spreading it." Alder responded with equal rapidity. "If we move it without authorization, you will be on record for mishandling evidence." The argument hit a point where it became a clash of duties. Jonas's desire to act versus Alder's duty to procedure. The book did something the room had not seen before. The pages breathed outward slowly, an audible sigh of paper. Ink boiled along the margins and formed a phrase in a typeface that matched no typewriter Evelyn had seen. "Choose one. Sacrifice one. Record one." The letters were not redaction but instruction. Evelyn's shoulders buckled. She nothing at first. She felt the weight of the choices in her chest like a physical load. "Jonas, not on my watch. I'm going out to the ridge. I'm getting Halvorsen back if he's alive." Alder's face went stone. "You can't go alone," Jonas snapped. "Then come with me." Alder laughed, a sound that was not mirth. "We have protocol. We do not run into an unknown field risk without a team," Jonas answered. "We do if it's the only way to stop the book from writing more names." The exchange ran 6 short lines and then halted because the room had run out of consensus. Evelyn made the decisive move. Jonas goes, Alder stays and seals the room. "I stay with the log." Her voice was measured in the way of someone reading an order into a record. Alder's expression shifted from command to calculation. "Jonas, you take the spare radio and the field pack. You sign the transfer. You will be recorded as leaving at a Zo 6 Loto 2. Jonas packed without a word except for, "Evelyn, if I don't come back." He did not finish. He pressed his palm briefly to her forearm and then left through the side door. The station felt altered when the door closed. The lock engaged with a finality that resonated through the floorboards. Jonas' steps faded down the gravel path. On the desk, the logbook lay open like an instrument. The last typed line slid again, expanding to show a redaction where a cause should be. Alder walked to the doorway, then turned and said in a voice that held more wear than command, "Marsh, close the book and place it in the evidence crate." "Do it on the record." Evelyn obeyed. She closed the book slowly and set it into the crate. Her fingers brushed the leather. The spine had a charred smell. She snapped the crate lid shut and set the redacted seal across the latch. They carried the crate outside with 2 people on each side. The cold morning light found them packing the van. Alder read the containment checklist out loud. Seals, chain of custody, authorized signatories. Evelyn checked boxes with her pen. The motion of bureaucracy returned them to a familiar place. Still, a small page remained in her pocket, the film canister's negative wrapper. She had not removed it. It was folded into a scrap of paper that Jonas had used as a heat test earlier. At the van, Alder climbed into the driver's seat and radioed the agency. He used the formal language the protocol demanded. "Containment team en route. We are secure." Evidence sealed, he hung up and looked at Evelyn. "You will file the transfer report at headquarters," he said. "You will state exactly what you saw, and not what you guessed." Evelyn nodded. She slid the film wrapper from her pocket and unfolded it in the van's dim light. It bore an ink smudge that had not been there when Jonas packed the camera. A name printed in a different hand stared up at her. An unfamiliar surname and a short line. "Do not read aloud." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the paper. They returned to the station to complete the log and sign the crate. By the time the agency team arrived, the file was stamped, discontinued. The crate sat on the transport van with its seal intact. Alder insisted on escorting the agency officers to verify chain of custody. Evelyn watched the transfer in silence. When the officers left with the crate, Alder closed the office door and said, "This file will be removed from public record. Do not disclose." His voice carried the weight of someone closing a case in the ledger. Evelyn walked back to her desk alone. The camera feeds were off. The monitor displayed a frozen frame from earlier, the fresh line forming while she had said the word "stop" in Chapter 2. She let the monitor's blue light wash over her face. She set the film wrapper on the desk and smoothed it flat. The wrapper now bore an additional line typed across it in small, tight letters. "For next reader, heed the redaction. Choose differently." The phrasing implied agency, not fate. Evelyn's mouth hardened. She felt exhaustion and a shift toward resignation. The emotion that had driven the chapter moved from active suspicion to an iron restraint. She folded the wrapper and tucked it into an envelope. She wrote on the back a single line, "Station 3, evidence retained, Marsh." Then she sealed it and slid it into the satchel she carried when she left the station. Alder watched her and said, "You do not tell anyone who is not on the roster." Evelyn set her jaw and answered, "I won't." She left the building with the satchel and the sealed envelope inside. Outside, the forest at the station edge was quiet in the way that comes after large movements. There was no immediate sign of Halvorsen or Jonas. The road had only faint tire marks and a smear of dry leaves. Evelyn walked to the car and put the satchel on the passenger seat. Her hand brushed the film canister still inside the envelope. She carried the evidence not to spread it, but to contain it personally, a choice that shifted responsibility onto her shoulders. That afternoon, Alder issued a formal statement. The file was discontinued pending agency review. The station returned to a brittle calm. Halvorsen was listed as missing, last confirmed at the ridge. Jonas's field log was incomplete. His radio had dropped when he left. Alder closed ranks with the agency and instructed the local press to defer comment. The official log entry read like all the others, sealed, redacted, discontinued. Evelyn read the line and felt the register of obligations clamp onto her ribs. At home that night, Evelyn unwrapped the film canister at a kitchen table lit by a single lamp. The negative inside was small and precise. She placed the negative into an envelope and then into a locked drawer in her flat. She wrote a short notation in the archive ledger she kept at home. Supplemental evidence withheld. See sealed envelope M03. Her handwriting was steady. She was keeping 2 records now, one public, one private. Jonas's absence reverberated through the ledger, and each time she wrote his name, she felt the surface of the life the book could claim. 2 days later, Alder's office called and requested that Evelyn sign a non-disclosure addendum. He insisted she sign in person. She went to his office and sat across from him at a narrow table under fluorescent light. Alder placed a stapled packet on the table. "Sign these," he said. "You will not speak of the crate, the discontinuation, or the agency response." Evelyn took the packet and read the lines. She saw the agency stamps and the redaction bar that began to look like a seal of permission. She signed with a pen that did not tremble. The final twist came when she later compared the film negative to the agency's sealed report. The agency's report listed Jonas as leaving at 6:02 and never returning. Halvorsen was listed as missing on the ridge with no cause given. The agency footage contained a segment cut from the camera angle directly above the desk, the one the station had kept active. In that segment, a hand, small and ungloved, reaches into frame, slides open the right hand page, and runs a fingertip along the line where Jonas's name appears. The hand belonged to Evelyn according to her gloves and cuff marks. But when she watched the frame on her home monitor, another detail matched nothing she remembered. The camera angle showed a second shadow passing the window at the exact second Jonas's name appeared. That shadow had not been on any of the station's recorded logs before. Evelyn sat with the footage and the ledger and counted the movement of choices she had made. She had moved from suspicion to doubt to alarm, and then to a controlled decision to save what she could. She had chosen containment over disclosure and had sent Jonas into the forest. She had kept a piece of analog evidence hidden. The book had taken one person who left and had sealed its file. The agency had closed the case and continued its procedures. Evelyn had signed away her right to speak, and yet she had kept the negative. In the final morning light, she returned to the ranger station one last time to retrieve a scrap she had left under a floorboard. The station smelled like dust and pine. She lifted the board and found the wrapper with Jonas's name written in a different hand. There was a new notation on the wrapper in faint type. File discontinued, next reader warned. Evelyn folded the wrapper and tucked it into her satchel. She locked the station door behind her and set the key on the counter where Alder would find it. Evelyn did not stand outside long. She folded herself around the satchel and walked away from the building with steps that were precise and measured. She had protected the public record, she had obeyed containment, and she had kept one unsecured note that might warn someone else or doom them. The final paragraph of the entry in her private ledger read, "I closed the crate, I signed the form, I kept the negative. If anything more happens, this file will show what choices were made here." She pushed the pen cap into place and set the ledger in the drawer beside the negative. By noon the crate had left the station and the agency's seals had been logged. Alder returned to his routine and the station functioned again with muted efficiency. The logbook itself no longer lay open on her desk, it had left in an evidence crate. The immediate danger that had named Halvorsen Jonas, and Evelyn had concluded in the sense that the agency had taken custody and the station had carried out procedure. Evelyn had acted to restrict the book's spread, and the consequences had been counted. One colleague gone into the field, one name missing, one file discontinued. Evelyn understood then that containment did not mean safety. She understood that her choice to keep the negative made her a custodian of a different kind. She had not read a detailed fate. The log had redacted the clause under her name. She had chosen to live with not knowing. She had also chosen to keep a scrap of analog proof in a locked drawer. The chapter closes on a small, specific action. Evelyn slid the satchel into the back seat of her car, turned the key in the ignition, and started the engine. She drove toward the city with the sealed envelope on the passenger seat and a single instruction written on the inside flap. Archive network contact in case of further entries. She did not sound a public alarm. She signed the forms required and then put the ledger back into the drawer. She closed the drawer and turned the key in the lock. The final sentence of her private entry read, "File discontinued. Evidence withheld. Report to archive if anomaly resumes." She folded the paper, laid it on top of the negative, and shut the drawer. The door clicked and she walked out of the room. The last concrete beat. Chief Alder placed the station's external sign back on the post and called in the official log that afternoon. He spoke to the agency and said the station would be sealed for review. Evelyn watched him close the file on his desk, and then she stepped into the car and drove away with the satchel on the seat beside her, the film negative in a locked drawer at home, and a folded wrapper in her pocket bearing a name she did not recognize. Emotion roots, suspicion, emotion shifts, suspicion, doubt, alarm, resolve, doubt, confrontation, controlled sacrifice.